Hey, Geek Week 7, it's Tuesday. Sorry that I haven't been posting on Sundays. I've been a little busy trying to get studying done. What can I say? It takes up a lot of time. Con law, a lot of reading, But anyway, here I am. I'm back, and I'll do Tuesdays from now on. And welcome to Elizabeth. Sounds like you had a fun trip, so sorry for the confusion on the whole Sunday, Tuesday thing. But anyway, welcome. Love seeing what you're bringing to the group. But anyway, let's get back to what I do best, and that is law. At least, well, I think I do it well anyway. So recently, the Supreme Court of Connecticut, which for those of you who are not from the U.S., Connecticut is a small state on the eastern seaboard. The Supreme Court of Connecticut, so the highest court in that state, is taking up a case that's gone through the appellate system to decide, get this, whether or not a horse can be a vicious animal. Yes, whether or not a horse can be a vicious animal. So why is that important? Now, the friend that brought this case to my attention actually thought this was a really stupid issue for a court to decide. And on the face of it, he'd be right. Because let's face it, is that really one of the important issues that judges should be solving? Whether or not a horse can be labeled as vicious by law? They should be solving the big questions. They should be dealing whether or not, people can carry guns into schools. They should be upholding freedom of speech. Or ruling on constitutional issues of, limitations of congressional power. Things of that nature, right? That's what courts should be doing. Yeah, no, that's not the only reason courts exist. Remember, courts exist to resolve disputes between parties, and this is definitely true at the state level. So the Supreme Court of Connecticut was doing this, well, probably for one or two reasons. Tort law, as I have explained before, for those of you who watched my lovely little tort video explaining that they are not tasty treats, they are legal concepts. Tort law actually decides whether or not an animal can be vicious due to things like, bite propensity. So maybe this horse bit somebody. I don't know. I didn't read the case. It's the first time you'll ever hear me admit that. I didn't read the case. But they decide things like this for one of two reasons. First, it's a novel concept or a novel issue of law that hasn't really yet been resolved by the state, meaning the appellate courts really haven't had a chance to let it percolate through the system, and therefore the court wants to set the standard on how they should rule. Because remember, Supreme Court's the highest court up there in any state system. It goes Supreme Court, Appellate Court, Court of Common Pleas. So the other reason they could be doing it, number two, is because the appellate courts, the middle courts, have been ruling three different ways on it, and they want to standardize it and make a uniform rule. So I guess 1 and 2 are kind of similar. But without that guidance from the Supreme Court of Connecticut, the trial courts in Connecticut would just end up getting it wrong or rule three different ways, and then you'd have to go through the appeals courts, and the appeals courts would get it wrong, taking up more time. So maybe it's a good reason that they hear this case outright. Now, of course, it had to go through the appeals process anyway, but better to do it once than 4 times and have courts rule 4 different ways. It's better for the supreme authority on state law, in this case the Connecticut Supreme Court, to resolve this issue not because of the facts of the case, being that it was a horse and it was a really weird case where it bit somebody, but the fact that this question has now been answered and the courts know how to rule. So now they can get past that and get to the bigger issues in Connecticut. Now, granted, a lot of that's going to be left to the legislature. The gun issue in Connecticut is a little touchy, bad form. But now they can move on to the important things that they have to resolve. That's all I got for this week. I'll see you next Tuesday.